We are going beyond the headlines, asking the questions you want answered, exploring government policies and how they impact you. We are delving deeper.
Good evening and welcome to Delving Deeper. I'm your host, Sunil Lalla. Our first guest for 2025 is the Honourable Symon de Nobriga. He's the Minister in the Office of the Prime Minister, Communications. Good evening, Minister. Welcome back to the show. It's been quite a while we've had you on Delving Deeper.
Good evening, Sunil. It has been. I was starting to get a little jealous because I wasn't getting picked to come on here, but I'm really happy to be the first guest for 2025.
Starting off 2025 on a great note. Minister, your ministry oversees government communications and information as well. How is this information shared with the public in an efficient and a timely manner?
Well, Sunil, firstly, efficient, yes. Timely, yes. Effective, yes. Factual, yes. And very often we find ourselves in an environment where you can't always get those four things happening at the same time. So OPMC and through our agencies and our divisions is very focused on getting information to the public as quickly as possible, but not jeopardizing the facts. Yeah? And of course, we are in a continually evolving environment. So, of course, we utilize state media. So TTT is very important to us. We are one of the major stakeholders when we have national press conferences, and TTT as well forms part of that anchoring mechanism and that support structure. When we have to go live, when we have to assist other ministries to prepare and to disseminate that information. But of course, we also have our information division and our government communications division. And through all of those agencies, divisions, and use of different platforms, we will see that we are operating on air, both television and radio, online, and across all our platforms. But of course, we are also, when necessary, responsible for disseminating media releases, whether it be for ministries or the Ministry of Communications itself disseminating press releases. So what we've found is that you have various demographics spread across age in particular, and those demographics go to different places to get their information. They go to different forms of media, so whether it is what we typically refer to as traditional media, which would be television, radio, press, or social media. But even on social media, we've also found that age also separates different platforms. So it's really important for us at OPMC to ensure that we are across Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, X, YouTube, LinkedIn, and utilizing the type or the mode of communications, the type of content that is relevant to those platforms. So it's ongoing, it is challenging, but it is a challenge that we, to put it, I suppose simply, we like. It allows for our young people who are at the ministry to not only be creative, but be creative not with facts, but the way in which we communicate those facts for old, young, and I suppose the in-between like me.
Minister, glad you mentioned TikTok because, there was this potential ban that may have happened over the last weekend and so on. But in terms of TikTok and disseminating information, how do you do it? Because if you look at Facebook, YouTube, traditional media could disseminate information, but TikTok is a whole different dynamic, a whole different age group, and exactly what you can put on there. Because what exactly and how do you formulate putting something on TikTok?
Well, let's start from the place of me accepting the fact that I'm 50 years old, right? And as much as I enjoy TikTok, it really was about me speaking to the young people that we have working in the ministry, who are a lot closer to that generation or of that generation. Really what it comes down to is understanding the value of that platform and understanding that sometimes you may have to do multiple videos because you're dealing with short form, sometimes 90 seconds. So it is challenging, but it's a combination of video, you speaking, text over video. There are different combinations, and in that sense, it is really about utilizing the nuances of the platform in order to get the information across. The truth is that you may not always get it right. And when I say get it right, I mean more about the way or how engaging it is. But that was a learning process. So through that and over the last few years, it has been a process of learning the platform, learning our public, and what resonates best with them. The key to it, however, is that you don't stray from the facts of the matter. And that's always our anchor point. Our anchor point is stick to the facts, but communicate them in a compelling way.
Now, there is a communications unit within each of the ministries and the state agencies. What is your relationship in terms of your ministry with these communications department as it relates to disseminating this information?
So that is a great question, because I suppose the general public may feel that all communications units across all of government and state agencies report to the Ministry of Communications and to the Minister of Communications. That's not the fact. At one point, there was a sort of centralized approach to communications. But as the public grew and adapted and changed and evolved, and as different platforms grew and adapted and changed and evolved, a decision was taken that they would sort of devolve that. So yes, each ministry, each state agency has their own communications department. We look at it this way, and we have a mantra at communications here. The mantra is many voices, one message. So we understand that we are all components of the state machinery. We are all components of one government. But the Ministry of Health doesn't always speak to or in the same way as the Ministry of Social Development or Tourism or National Security or Finance or Energy. So what it has really been is us, not if you think about it as an organizational chart, it's not about a solid line connecting every single ministry back to the Ministry of Communications, but a dotted line. So we are constantly in contact with our brother and sister ministries and agencies. What we have approached, or the way in which we've approached it at our government communications division in particular, is assigning ministries to members of staff. So those members of staff act almost as liaisons. So they will reach out to the various ministries, find out what is happening, find out which way our ministry can support, because of course, certain ministries may have resources to be able to communicate better than others. It is our job to ensure that we can support those who require the help more, ensure that we are very aware of what is happening in each ministry, because every single ministry, while it has its own work program, its own initiatives and whatnot, also form part of an overarching government policy or policies, and they may, in their individual actions, be fulfilling a part of a certain deliverable that government has. So it is really important that we ensure that we know what everybody is doing, but it's also important that they know what everybody is doing. So we take that sort of hub position, and we ensure that information is being shared formally and informally across ministries and we are able to aggregate the information that is being shared, the initiatives that are being rolled out, programs, distributions, all of those different initiatives of each ministry, to put it all into one cohesive narrative so that we can not only highlight each ministry but show the public how all of government works together, divisions and ministries, and sometimes both local and international partners outside of government all work together to deliver to the people of Trinidad and Tobago. But besides disseminating information across ministries and besides aggregating ministries information to disseminate that to the public, we also see our role as, one, assisting in upskilling, not only at the Ministry of Communications, but also upskilling across ministries. So we have what we refer to and as the communities of practice. And our communities of practice is a monthly meeting where all of the communications professionals across all of state agencies and government ministries are invited to come. It allows for the communicators to, I suppose, meet face to face, build their own relationships, but we also utilize that forum for upskilling. But in 2024, the communities of practice would have been central to a crisis communications training program that we put on for all of government. So all of the ministries, various state agencies were invited to take part. We had external resources come in crisis communications, managers and professionals come in to do a training that would have gone over, I think, 3 days, at the end of which there were deliverables that all of those communicators then had to act on, right? So they had to work on a proper crisis communications plan, but all of that is integral so that in the event of a crisis, we are able to deliver in the way that the public would expect us to speak early, to speak clearly, to address issues. But the truth is, you require a plan to do that. It's a simple thing to say, but it's great to have a documented approach that you can follow. And I think that was one of the major achievements for that communities of practice, and of course for the ministry through them, for all of government.
As you're talking about upskilling and training, just this past week, I know there would have been a graduation ceremony hosted by the Ministry of Public Administration, which is the Commonwealth Advanced Training Program in Government Performance Management, where various permanent secretaries, deputy permanent secretaries, heads of department directors, and many others would have partaked in this. And actually, they partaked in it in 2024, but was the graduation ceremony in terms of upskilling that and strengthening the tools to enhance that information dissemination and so on. How important is something like this?
It's critical. And it's critical that as government, we are constantly upskilling. It's, especially from a leadership position, it is important that that happens so that the information, the tools, the know-how are then filtered through the entire organization. But it just goes to show you that various ministries are always working together in order to improve the way in which the public service can interact with the public, but also improving the public service itself.
Minister, NALIS, the National Library and Information System Authority, many people might know that it actually falls under the Ministry of Communications. Tell us about some of the things that NALIS is doing in the past year or so.
I know I'm on TTT, and I don't want to be someone who talks about favorites, but I am really connected to the work that NALIS is doing, and I think really and truly I'm connected to their work for two reasons. One, because of my own love for libraries, but two, of course, I'm a father of two young children, and I've always thought of libraries as being so integral to the growth of a society. NALIS has been extremely busy over the last 4.5 years, and particularly in the last year. Because of the work we've been doing, a lot of that work has come to fruition, or came to fruition in 2024. So there were a few things that we saw in terms of big projects. The two key, I suppose, would be the delivery of the Diego Martin Public Library and the La Joquita Public Library. But beyond those two, we are also very close to handing over the Miaro Public Library. Now, those are three big projects. But beyond those three big projects, NALIS has their co-located library services, and in each of our libraries, NALIS's work happens daily through the work of the librarians themselves, with the young and old who go to the library, whether it is for research, to do homework, to spend time. That work goes on every single day, but also NALIS partners with other agencies and agencies external to the government in order to do upskilling. So whether it be ALTA, whether it be various Rotary clubs, whether it be numerous NGOs, all focused on delivering and upskilling, whether it be computer literacy, digital literacy, assisting persons who have come to do research, whether those persons are students who are going to the Heritage Library, as my daughter would have when she was getting prepared for CSEC and her SBAs in history, whether it be persons who are going to utilize the computer banks, whether that is for research or it is for recreation or it is for accessing government services. Every single day, librarians and NALIS are positively impacting this nation. And I really cannot congratulate them enough for the work that they do. The chairman on board, the executive management, and the staff. And I think librarians, quite frankly, are one of the most undervalued professions in this country.
Minister, we need 21st century. We need technology age. What would you say to your naysayers and, naysayers that asking the question, why are we building more libraries when we have all this online access and so on, anything at our fingertips and so on? And I know the chairman of NALIS as well would have asked youths to turn to libraries away from crime. What would you say to naysayers? Why are we building these libraries in La Joquita and Miaro and the Diego Martin?
So tell you, Sunil, I've heard that, if I have to be honest, very often when I hear those comments, or should say I see those comments, because most often it happens online, it upsets me, because libraries, while they are brick and mortar, are not only brick and mortar. Libraries very often operate as a central safe space in communities, whether those be standalone libraries or co-located libraries. Libraries very often allow for people to access equipment, whether that be, actually maybe I should say this better. Very often libraries help to bridge that digital gap. Very often libraries operate as a space where creatives can come together. They operate as a space where artists can have shows, clubs can have meetings, lectures can be had and attended. So it is more than just a shell with shelves and books. Libraries are integral to communities, and not only just as a place to get reading material, but beyond that, even the libraries themselves are evolving with the times. So NALIS is online. NALIS does have, and I have the card with me now, does have a library card that allows you not only to access the physical locations, but also to access the plethora of books and research material online as well. So it is not just about that, but more importantly than that, the person who says that I have a phone on me, right? And because I have this, there is no need for a library. Having access to information is not the same as having access to facts. It is like saying that there is no need to listen or watch the news or read newspapers, whether that be physical or online, because I can just Google something. Just being able to Google it doesn't make it true. Just being able to look up something online doesn't mean that you are getting the facts or the entire story. What the library is a great equalizer, because you have professionals who are there, who are trained to assist you in research, who are trained to direct you in the path that you need to go in order to get certain information. And beyond all of that, it is, yes, a physical space. And very often, I'm going to say something that might be a little controversial. Too often, we see people talking about why should we build libraries only when we're building libraries in certain communities, as if those communities will not utilize the libraries. And to them I say, one, we should be building libraries in every single community. And every single community has the ability to totally utilize all of the resources of a library. So I disagree completely. I disagree completely that there is not a place for libraries in our country. And I will even go so far as to say that we do have communities where libraries are needed more than ever. As a minister who has responsibility for NALIS, I will always advocate for it. I will always advocate for having libraries in every single community, whether that is, as I said, standalone or co-located.
Minister, just switching the topic slightly, I assure you there's no bias in my next question, just because it involves TTT Limited.
I suspect it's a TTT question.
But coming to it, why is state media important, and how is it beneficial for the people of Trinidad and Tobago?
I feel as if for 4.5 years I've been answering this question, right? There is a first of all, let me start off by saying state media is absolutely essential. And there is a difference between commercial media that has, at the end of the day, a dollars and cents bottom line that has to be tied to advertising dollars. If that station is not profitable, it either has to be carried by other components of a conglomerate, or it has to cut in order to bring their costs down. In there lies that dollars and cents bottom line, right? And in order to achieve that, very often there is a focus on entertainment as opposed to an overarching responsibility to inform the public. And that is why state media is important. State media and TTT, and in this sense I mean TTT Limited, so not just the television station, but also the radio stations, have a responsibility that goes beyond commercial media. State media does not, don't get me wrong, you want any organization to try to operate as close to profitability as they can, and you would want it to be cost effective. You would want the organization to be run in an efficient way. But overarching responsibility of state media goes far beyond its ability to be profitable, and it goes to the heart of what is the responsibility of media in a modern democracy. Ensuring that you have a population that is properly informed, ensuring that that properly informed population is able to make the best decisions that it can. And if that population is being informed and is able to discern fact from fiction, is able to understand the facts around the realities that they find themselves in, is able to make decisions for themselves, for their families, understand where the country is heading, understand global trends, how external factors impact us, all of those things. It is absolutely essential. State media, in this case, we're in Trinidad and Tobago, TTT Limited, absolutely important. So not even this show. I don't know that there is another show like this where you are able to speak to ministers of government, able to speak to decision makers at state agencies, speaking about not just the overarching work of the agencies, of specific programs, but also speaking to specific issues and the way in which they are tackling those issues. Not just the what, but the why and the how. I don't know that that necessarily happens anywhere else. So if not for TTT, then where? And if I suppose there was any example of why state media is important, the show would be one of those examples and a prime example of it.
You touched on profitability, and I remember about, it must have been in 2022 because I was still wearing a mask, but I was walking on the promenade, and I think it was heading to a protest or assignment or something of the sort, but I had on the TTT shirt, and this guy watched me. He said, "Hey man, TTTs make money," which which brings me to the next question: is TTT becoming a financially viable entity, and are there steps being taken to reach that phase?
I suppose it go back to my previous answer, right? And yes, you would want any organization to look at their costs, to ensure that that they are managing their costs as effectively as possible. You would look to try to ensure that in terms of the work that they are doing, that they are doing that in a responsible manner. But so I keep coming back to the fact that I don't see financial viability as the definition of success for state media, right? Now, that is not to say that you would want profligate spending to be occurring, but that should not be how you define success, particularly, or maybe I should say specifically, in TTT Limited's case. Yeah, I am more concerned with what is TTT fulfilling its obligation, fulfilling its mandate and its responsibility to the society by informing and, where possible, of course, entertaining them as best as possible. But in addition to that, the board and the management at TTT also understands their responsibility. And so they are constantly working on ensuring that costs are managed, that there is responsibility in spending, responsibility in the way that the operations are run. So even as we don't mark them solely on a financial bottom line, the organization itself is expected to be responsible for the spending of the organization.
What was the TTT's major accomplishment or achievement in 2024? And I remember the CEO, Mr. Winter, Adrian Winter, collecting an award on behalf of TTT News. So I know your answer would have something on the store of TTT News as well, but I'll let you answer.
First of the three highlights for me. TTT did very well at the Caribbean Broadcasting Union NGC Awards held last year in Belize. Walked away with 4 awards plus a special mention. And in those awards, it was telling for me. One award was for Best Public Service Announcement for a public service spot on mental health. The second was for the Best Digital Production, and that was for a conversation between a Rapso artist and Omari Ashby, speaking about Rapso and including live entertainment and live performances. And then the third was for Best Documentary, and it was for an episode of Best Village that featured not only Minister Kujo Lewis, but also in particular speaking about traditional folk dance and classic Indian dance. But it was interesting for me, the difference in those 3 awards. 1, a public service announcement. 2, an award that was for digital, which very often people may not think about when they think about traditional media. But TTT has been doing very well in its own evolution in embracing the digital space. But even in that embracing of the digital space, it was also hearkening back to one of those parts of our culture that is uniquely Trinbagonian in Rapso. And then the third, also speaking about those parts of our culture that make us Trinbagonian and that is so essential to our Trinbagonianness. Not only in the contemporary space, but also something that has been with this country for decades in our Best Village competition. So TTT winning those awards tells me, 1, if not TTT, then who? And 2, that our production teams and our production quality is such that it is amongst the best in the region and has been acknowledged to be amongst the best in the region. It shows me that the work at TTT to constantly evolve, whether that be via free-to-air or in the digital space, is ongoing. It is being recognized. And that is important not only for those outside of TTT, but also for those inside of TTT, to see their potential realized and to see that realized potential recognized. I'm very, very proud of that. The second achievement is our home of media. I remember maybe about 2 years ago speaking to the chairman about this program. And at the center of the why. So the home of media is a mechanism for young people who have come out of university, come out of those specialized training programs, and who want to enter media to get not only continued education, but to get real life experience. It is another example of how ministries and agencies can work together, because it's actually collaboration between the Office of the Prime Minister Communications and TTT Limited and the Ministry of Labour and the OJT program. So what you have are these young persons who want to enter into the media fraternity, want to get involved as journalists, whether that be journalists or communications professionals in the public sector, in traditional journalism and media houses, or they want to enter into that online space whether that be through blogs, their own news pages and platforms. It's an opportunity to leave that academic space and enter into the real world, working in the industry of your choosing, being paid as a professional and getting real life experience in order to position you to add value to the fraternity. And it is also an opportunity for TTT to take up that role that it also has. There was a time where everyone started at TTT. There's a generation of media professionals that all got their start at TTT. What we wanted to do was to ensure that TTT was able yet again to be that space to nurture young people coming into the fraternity and to prepare them for life in the fraternity, in the media profession, in the communications profession, equip them not only with experience, but also through master classes with persons who have been there and done that and would impart on them their own life lessons, you know, further entrenching the ethos of journalism, you know, what this means not only to you or to your media house, but also to the wider population. So I'm extremely happy that our Home of Media project has started, our program has started. We expect to see that every year, working with young persons who have come out, as I said, come out of university, coming out of those specialist training programs, in order to equip them to go into the sector. And of course, the last one is TTT's own improvements of their broadcasting infrastructure. Quite a lot has been done up at Cumberland Hill to improve TTT's transmission infrastructure. And it was not without its challenges. So part of my joy is also that we are at that stage where we are seeing the project completed. Our transmission equipment up at Cumberland Hill and its improvement, actually not even improvement, maybe we should say for what it is, its replacement. We would have had some aged infrastructure up there, and TTT has gone out over the course of, I believe it'll be 2 financial years, to remove the old infrastructure, to put new infrastructure up at Cumberland Hill, widening its reach, improving its quality, and not just for TTT's own broadcast, but its impact on government's ability to communicate in times of emergency is a critical component as to the why we would want to see that equipment up there being replaced, improved, and so yeah, I think those 3 projects are the 3 projects that I really wanted to touch on. Of course, TTT, very much like NALIS, every single day is producing wins for the nation, you know, and so the work there is something that should be cheered on every single day. But those 3 big projects are the projects that I'm most proud of in 2024.
To those saying that, you know, traditional media is dying, what is TTT doing to stay relevant? And I know we had a new board in place in May of 2024. Are they doing any sort of impact to help that?
I think TTT's relevance is something that, like all media houses, is evolving as the population evolves. I think TTT is doing well to maintain its responsibility to the population, but more than that, TTT's embracing of the digital space is something that should be applauded. And I think more than anything, that is the key. having projects and having programs like the Home of Media is also very key to that. Because when you have young blood, young ideas coming into an organization, plus you have a board of directors and management who are ready to embrace those new and fresh ideas, the organization can't help but evolve. So TTT, I was very happy to see quite recently, TTT is on TikTok. It's a great thing to see because you see other international agencies embracing all of these platforms and embracing it in a way that opens new markets, brings in new viewers, and that is something that can only benefit not just the organization, but in the case of state media, and as I said, its responsibility not only to our population now, but to our population in the future. When you have that ability to evolve from bottom up and top down, the benefit of that cannot help but be felt. I think TTT is constantly evolving. I'm seeing at the station that, we are seeing new faces, whether those new faces are on air, in front of the camera, in some cases, behind the scenes as well, impacting things like production, in the newsroom. It's always good to have that change and have that evolution because it benefits the organization with bringing new ideas, bringing fresh ideas, and bringing a new way to communicate, new takes on new angles, on the way in which the station interacts with the population, whether that be on television, on radio, or online, and that is Facebook, Instagram, X, TikTok, which I really have to tell you, I'm thoroughly impressed by the organization with across all of the platforms. It's really, really important to see that. And I think, as I said, in bringing younger people into the viewership of TTT, it bodes well. It bodes well, and I'm excited to see not just how it works for the organization itself, but what the impact is on a younger population.
When you assumed the role as Minister in the Office of the Prime Minister Communications, is this what you expected?
So I don't know that you, especially as a first-time minister, I don't know that you actually know what to expect. Of course, I came to central government having served at local government, and so you get an understanding for the way, in some way, the business of government is conducted. But I suppose the short answer to that, Sunil, is no. But no, because I knew from in front that I didn't know. Sometimes that is the most important thing, not to come in with expectations, not to come in with, a position that this is what I will do and this is what I expect to see. What I expected is that I would do my best every single day, and I think that I have met that expectation. What I expected is that I would work as hard as I could to support my colleagues and also to empower the persons who work for me, and I think I've done that. But to say that I had an inkling of, that what the mechanism would look like, no. And I think that has served me well because I didn't have to unlearn. I didn't have to unlearn any presuppositions on my part. I have taken every day as it comes. I have listened to those who have held the portfolio before me. But I've also, I think, been true to who I am, and I've tried every single day to let that shine through my interactions with the staff at the ministry, with staff across agencies, with my colleagues, and in my own interactions on shows like this, to be me in every way, and that's the only expectation. You know, the expectation is to do your best and to be true to who you are. So in that sense, yes. But in terms of the job, no. You have to learn it, and you have to be willing to learn it. I think I have.
You know, election bells are ringing sometime this year. At the end of someone's tenure, I'm not saying this is the end of your tenure.
Thank you very much for that.
But you know, I remember Brian Lara talking about you know, he mentioned that the 375 and the 400 wasn't his greatest achievement. I think it was that 277 or even that 163 not out, I believe it was, to win against Australia, and Courtney Walsh taking that 500 wickets in Trinidad at the Queen's Park Oval, trapping Jack Alice LBW. But in your tenure as Minister in the Office of the Prime Minister Communications, what is the one project that stands out for you?
We talked about it already this evening, and it is not every minister and not every MP who can say that the same project is, I don't want to say greatest, but the highlight of their term in office. So for me, I'm particularly pleased that I am able to say that, because as the line minister for NALIS and as the MP for Diego Martin Central, I was able to look at the Diego Martin Public Library as a drawing on paper. I was able to sit in a meeting with the project managers, with the contractor, with the engineers, and look at a concept on a screen. And then to see that all the way from, like I said, an image on a screen or a drawing on a page, through that process of clearing the land, seeing the foundation laid, brick and mortar and steel going up, walking through at various intervals, whether it be by myself and with my team, or with the staff at NALIS, staff at UDCOT, with the contractor, with the other MPs that would be impacted by that sort of centralized location in the Diego Martin region, all the way through to putting books on shelves and helping the NALIS staff to actually outfit physically there with my team as well, to speaking at the opening and cutting the ribbon, and then seeing at my visits to the library, it actually being in use. Hearing principals from the various schools, particularly primary schools, talking about how much how pleased they are that the library is there. A funny story. When we were opening the library, of course, because it's in Diego Martin, because I'm the line minister, I spoke. But I wasn't the feature speaker. The Prime Minister was the feature speaker. Because right across the road from the library is Diego Martin West. The Prime Minister is also the Member of Parliament for Diego Martin West. So of course when the Prime Minister speaks, he's the feature speaker. But because I was the line minister, and because it was in my constituency, I think I may have spoken longer than I would normally speak. But it was really from a matter of pride. I remember this Prime Minister going up to speak, and a little smirk on his face introduced me as the other feature speaker. So I couldn't help but laugh at the moment, but I wouldn't take away a second of that time I spent speaking. because that Diego Martin Public Library is a matter of great pride for me. A project seen from start to finish inside of my term, and a project seen start to finish as a member of parliament. Yeah, that to me that is my highlight. Besides the Diego Martin Public Library, if I had to choose another project that was solely under my responsibility as a Minister of Communications, it would be that we were able to do something here that had never been done before. And that was that crisis communications training that we spoke about across government ministries and agencies to equip our government communicators in a way that they had not been equipped before to communicate in crisis and to add value at the agency and ministry. The fact that that is a first, that also is a point of pride for me.
Minister, just wrapping up, just speak to us about some of your challenges along the way.
When we talk about challenges, Sunil, really and truly, I think the main challenge is that daily battle to combat misinformation and disinformation. When you ask me if this is what I expected, I never expected to be sitting here having to battle that daily. Unfortunately, that started on day one. You know, coming in during COVID and all of the challenges that we would have seen in terms of the sort of misinformation, the sort of disinformation, and this constant, consistent, unrelenting attack on facts. It was beyond my ability to conceive, only because I could never understand where the value of that, what the value of that would be. It is unfortunate to me that, of course, I sit in a space and you see these attacks coming primarily from certain segments of the society. And it's unfortunate that one of the leading actors in that is our opposition. Constantly working to misalign the population from the truth. You don't have to agree with us. And in fact, in any society, there should be a difference in policy positions between a government and the opposition. That really should be the thing that divides us. We both want the same thing, which would be the ultimate best for the country, and how to get there is different. But when you have an onslaught on truth, that is something that I have had to face as the Minister of Communications daily, and it is a non-stop challenge. Unfortunately, it's going to be a challenge that I don't see ending, and it is because I haven't seen any indication that it can end. It comes back, I suppose, to where we started, the importance of state media, the importance of fact over fiction, and for a population to understand that truth should be preceded by the, and not a or my. The truth will always be the truth. Sometimes the truth doesn't always make you feel good. Sometimes facts aren't going to align with your own personal opinion, but it is the responsibility of state media, it is responsibility of the Ministry of Communications to disseminate the facts and the truth. But every single day, it is a challenge, because you have an onslaught of people who would prefer you to be led by what feels good, to be led by, this bolsters my own personal opinion or my own bias. We have gone in many ways, and this is not only Trinidad and Tobago, it's a global issue. We have gone away from the collective to the individual and targeting the individual and those biases for political points. That's a real challenge that we face because we have to disseminate the truth and the facts. That's the greatest challenge.
Well, we have been speaking to Minister in the Office of the Prime Minister Communications, the Honourable Symon de Nobriga. Mr. Nobriga, we literally just scratched the surface. There's so much things we can continue talking about, but we're just about out of time. But you do have the honour of being our first guest here on Delving Deeper for 2025. Thank you very much for joining us. It's been quite an elaborate discussion on TTT, on communications and ministries, the collaboration and so on. Thank you very much.
Sunil, thanks a lot for having me on. Thanks for the work that you all have been doing on Delving Deeper. I'm really honored that I was your opening batsman for 2025.
Join us at the same time next week for another episode of Delving Deeper. I am Sunil Lalla. On behalf of the entire group, have a great night.